Howdy, and welcome to another edition of the Shadow the Script podcast. I'm your host, Jared May. Please enjoy a intro music theme song that we'll be implementing cinematically as we get started with this episode. Stick around and enjoy for this one. I love this. This is awesome. It's that dead end period, of the sports off season where, man, I'm really going to get used to talking over as the music fades. But Jackie Robinson is going to be one of the primary topics of this conversation, and we'll get into why that is. I never really thought I'd be talking about Jackie Robinson in March, but happy St. Paddy's Day. If you celebrated on a Monday, as my brother said, go work your job. If you're over 24 and you're celebrating St. Patrick's Day, I don't understand what you're doing. We're wearing green and drinking green beer. I really don't get the hype. I was pissed when I got a green beer over the weekend. I said I met Will Smith over the weekend. But yeah, hey, that intro music, my cousin-in-law did it for me. He does a fantastic job. If you're interested in doing something like this or creating a demo or composing certain types of music, you can find Travis Wattigny on his own website. This is my first time doing this, so I apologize. At www.traviswattigny.com. That is www.travis Wattigny WATTIGNEY.com. He's a composer, producer, and educator. Kind of started his own business, did a fantastic job creating that intro music. And hopefully I'll maybe kind of transition it into a cinematic presentation at some point. But wow, yeah, I'm excited for that. And I hope you guys liked that as well. Really college football themed. We got the college drum. He did it with live instruments. So really give him a shout. And he'll be listed at the bottom in the episode as well for you guys' reference. So thank you, Travis, very much. Okay, so like I was mentioning earlier, we're going to be talking a little bit about Jackie Robinson, and I'll get into the reasons why. Now, it's going to be kind of a rough topic, I must admit. We do shadow the script on this podcast. I'm going to try and relate it as close as I can to sports, but I have a lot of factual information here to reference as we go through it. The secondary topics are going to be pretty fun, in my opinion. So the Masters is coming up in April, in early April, I think 10th through the 13th. And so they released a really cool preview, which I'm going to end up playing later in this episode. But also we're going to kind of walk through. Scottie Scheffler was the 2024 winner. And so he has the Masters Club dinner. I believe it's called the Taste of Texas menu for this year's Masters. So we're going to kind of go through it and kind of rank them or judge them or just kind of react to them and whatnot. After that, we're going to go into some NFL rule changes. So the Detroit Lions are proposing a plethora of different rule changes. We're going to go into that. And the Packers officially submitted a rule change proposal for the tush push, which is pretty big. Well, are other teams going to follow? Are they going to be like the lone wolves in this fight? I'm not sure. Then I just kind of wanted to mention this as we get towards the end, but Paul Skenes was announced the Pittsburgh Pirates opening day starter. Yeah, we'll go into that. All right. So it is, if you're listening to this, it is Thursday morning. Let's get rolling. So Jackie Robinson, the rundown. Look, Jeff Passan, who is an ESPN analyst, and I really don't care if I'm saying his last name right or wrong. I saw him, he was outraging on X about Jackie Robinson. I was like, why are we, is it Jackie Robinson Day already? I thought the opening day was like later in March. And apparently there were military articles, because Jackie Robinson, if you didn't know, served in the military before his baseball career, either before or after. We'll go into that. Apparently the Department of Defense, under the Pentagon and Pete Hegseth, they removed Jackie Robinson and others' military background information from the Department of Defense.gov website. And this is a part of like the DEI rollback and whatnot. They searched like anything that had DEI written in the URL, they removed it from their website. And so Jeff Passan was just kind of like outraged and throwing Twitter, like it was like X rage on the app. And I'm like, dude, what is this guy fussing about? Like, and so I looked into it. So let's kind of debunk this. And honestly, since I looked into it, it has been like re-added or relocated, if you will, and reinstated into like a different page or tab on the Department of Defense.gov website. So we'll go into why all this is happening, because you're going to see it on X, you're going to see it on Instagram, and you're going to go, oh, that looks like a bad look. And then you're going to look for some outlet source to like defend it, if that makes sense, especially if you're on one side or the other. And truly, I can say this before we get into it. My opinion is all Americans should be honored, especially if you served in the military, if you played a professional sport, and you're worthy of doing so, especially a instrumental figure like Jackie Robinson. So I don't think Pete Hegseth, the SecDef, the Secretary of Defense, who served in the teams and is for the warfighters, would intentionally remove a public figure like Jackie Robinson out of hate or out of spite. Pete Hegseth is not an idiot. So I knew that this was the case because I've watched plenty of Pete Hegseth clips. The Sean Ryan show with Pete Hegseth. I watched his hearing and all that kind of stuff. I'm really paying attention. The do your own research kind of guy, right? And I found it interesting, so I was like, let's look into it. So with the help of Grok on AI and then my own digital references, I wanted to look into it. So let's kind of break it down piece by piece. So here's like the rundown, and it's trending right now, obviously. But the removal of Jackie Robinson's military service article from the Department of Defense website aligns with the Trump administration's broader initiative to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) programs as outlined in recent executive orders targeting federal diversity efforts. Now, Jackie Robinson was a second lieutenant during World War II and faced a court-martial for refusing to comply with segregation on a military bus. Shout out to you, brother. An event that highlights his civil rights activism and adds historical weight to the controversy over the article's deletion. The decision has sparked criticism from public figures and fueled debates about the preservation of Black history, with some linking it to Pete Hegseth's leadership at the Pentagon, where he has overseen changes targeting DEI and removing acknowledgments of minority contributions. So this was kind of like the rundown. I asked it to bring up for me so I can catch up to speed. But then I wanted to go into the factual evidence of it all. So this is without asking advanced questions, well, what about this? Or where did it come from? Or where else can you find it? And whatnot. And so my big advanced question was, like I mentioned earlier, with Pete Hegseth, of all the things I talked about, warfighter, Secretary of Defense, served in the teams. Jackie Robinson served as a second lieutenant during World War II. There is no way that they are taking this out of spite of a race, ethnicity, or whatever. So my thought was, wait a minute. So are you telling me that this URL had the word DEI written inside it? They're rolling back on all of that crap because they're not trying to promote race, ethnicity, and that kind of stuff in their military. We're trying to promote patriotism, authenticity, pride and whatnot. We're Americans. So our military is proud to be Americans, and all races and colors and all that kind of stuff. We don't look at that. We don't see color. And you can probably ask anybody that served in the teams, that served in the military, that stuff doesn't matter That the corporate, commercials and advertisements and all, you can do all that all day long, all you want. But at the end of the day, when you're looking out for the warfighter, my opinion on it is that, like, when you're looking at that, it's not about whether or not, a black guy sacrificed his life for our country, or a white guy sacrificed his country. And because it's a white guy, it's better than the black or Hispanic or Native American. It doesn't matter. We're all Americans. We were here. We fought the Great War, the war to end all wars. And then the worst war, the Second World War after that. We fought against evil. And all Americans should be honored for that. So I was like, wait a minute. So they're probably just going to relocate this to a different portion of the site. And even if they did remove it from the Department of Defense.gov, like tab or page that was titled DEI, you're going to be able to find it somewhere else. So I know for a fact he's honored somewhere else. I know for a fact he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I know he's in the Negro Baseball Museum. I know you can find him in basically every website if you look it up, Google Scholar and whatnot. So I asked this question in a much more structured manner, and it said, you're correct that the removal of articles about Jackie Robinson, and the other ones that were mentioned were Charles Calvin Rogers, Ira Hayes, Native American code talkers, and other minority figures from the Department of Defense, Pentagon, website stems from the Trump administration's rollback of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. As noted in the web results and X posts, these articles were often included on military websites to support DEI training, education, and recruitment efforts, highlighting the contributions of underrepresented groups to foster inclusivity and inspire diverse participation in the military. However, with the Pentagon's purge of DEI-related content, these stories are no longer accessible on official Department of Defense platforms. So it clearly states that this is a restructuring of the Department of Defense and military recruitment, where we recruit everyone. It doesn't have to be a focus on a minority group. It's a focus on everyone, because we don't look at minority and majority in the military. We look at everyone, all sorts of colors, races, genders, male and female, and whatnot. We honor all of them. If you want to serve your country, go and do it. You're going to be honored equally throughout the military. And so I was like, it's pretty simple, right? And so then I was like, okay, where can you find Jackie Robinson's military history? And so I was like, let's just list them all out. Historical archives and libraries, National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, www.archives.gov. You can find them. The Library of Congress, www.loc.gov. You can find them in books and biographies. Jackie Robinson, a biography by Arnold Rampersad. Baseball's Great Experiment by Jules Tygel. Fighting for America by James E. Westhider. And then online historical databases and websites. Military.com, history.com, Encyclopedia Britannica, Wikipedia, museums and cultural institutions, National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, National Museum of African American History and Culture, U.S. Army Museum System, academic journals and articles, JSTOR, Google Scholar, Internet Archive, Wayback Machine, archive.org, news outlets and feature stories, NBC News, CNN, The New York Times, ProQuest historical newspapers. And so you look at all that, it's like, even if they took it away from a tab in the Department of Defense.gov, you can find it everywhere else. And so, I looked, and so since then, like I mentioned, it was reinstated, and I'll read some of the statements here, because Jeff Passan was really going after this, on X. So I'm recording this on a Wednesday, and around 2 p.m. on Wednesday, Jeff Passan tweeted, when asked about the reason for the removal of the story on the Department of Defense website on Jackie Robinson's military service, Pentagon Press Secretary John, I'm going to say Elliott, said the following in a statement to ESPN. As Secretary Pete Hegseth has said, DEI is dead at the Defense Department. Discriminatory equity ideology is a form of woke cultural Marxism. That's a big word. that has no place in our military. It divides the force, erodes unit cohesion, and interferes with the service's core warfighting mission. There's that word again, warfighting. We are pleased by the rapid compliance across the department with the directive removing DEI content from all platforms. In the rare cases that content is removed, either deliberately or by mistake, that is out of the clearly outlined scope of the directive, we instruct the components and they correct the content accordingly. Okay, so there you go. There's that. Pretty freaking strict statement by the Department of Defense. Kind of a we don't mess around narrative there. And we're not going to fall for your, I don't know, sit down when you piss arguments. And so, furthermore, Jeff Passan continued to look into this and said, the Department of Defense sent ESPN an updated statement from Pentagon Press Secretary John Uliott on the removal of the story on its website about Jackie Robinson's military service. And here is another statement. Everyone at the Department of Defense loves Jackie Robinson, as well as the Navajo Code Talkers, the Tuskegee Airmen, the Marines at Iwo Jima, and so many others. We salute them for their strong and in many cases heroic service to our country. Full stop. We do not view or highlight them through the prism of immutable characteristics such as race, ethnicity, or sex. We do so only by recognizing their patriotism and dedication to the warfighting mission like every other American who has worn the uniform. Exactly like I mentioned before in my official opinion. DEI, discriminatory equity ideology, does the opposite. It divides the force, erodes unit cohesion, and interferes with the service's core warfighting mission. We are pleased by the rapid compliance across the department with the directive removing DEI content from all platforms. In the rare cases that content is removed, either deliberately or by mistake, that is out of the clearly outlined scope of the directive. We instruct the components and they correct the content so it recognizes our heroes for their dedicated service alongside their fellow Americans, period. Again, very, very strong-armed statement from the Department of Defense. And so then about 3 hours ago, around 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, the Department of Defense story on Jackie Robinson has been restored to its original URL. No longer does it redirect to one with the letters DEI in it. So like I mentioned, Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon and the warfighting mission, they're not retarded. They know Jackie Robinson served in the military. They know he's an instrumental figure, as well as the other ones. What they don't want to do is promote, like I mentioned, race, ethnicity, or sex within the warfighting mission. That's not the mandate that the military, coexists with. The military has a very strict and fundamental and foundational impact on young men and women who decide to join the cause. To, the Uncle Sam, we want you to fight for America. And, in a time where America is encouraging peace, as I will quote Ultron here, peace in our time. We're promoting peace. We're anti-war. We're no longer about, funding foreign countries over some small dispute between some faction in a Middle Eastern country or whatnot, unless you're Israel, right? And I say that in a joking manner. And we want to make America strong, the economy in America strong, the military in America strong. And instead of having politicians on both sides of the party get richer and richer based on senseless wars that mean nothing to us Americans, that our U.S. taxpayer dollars are being allocated towards, we would rather reallocate those funds to support the taxpayers in this country and strengthen our military from within. And when we're fighting, we want to go fight where evil is present. And I think the administration that's, in the office right now has done a great job of at least expressing that mission clearly and explicitly to the public. And they haven't really fallen for the bull crap. They haven't really bent any knees. And, as someone that is an independent, podcast creator where I don't want to be controlled or have to bend the knee to any sort of platform, like I can appreciate this because, guys like Jackie Robinson should absolutely be honored. And, when I mentioned earlier, he was court-martialed for an anti-segregation misconduct thing. And he was honorably discharged for an ankle injury and whatnot. Like that stuff matters to me. Like that should be recognized. You should be able to read that in places. And so just because it was removed from a certain section of the Department of Defense.gov website and it's available on other government websites and everywhere else that the normal person would think to look. I mean, hell, if you wanted to learn about Jackie Robinson, you could type it in you can type it in AI, it would give you an answer. You could type it in Wikipedia, it would give you an answer. All those places that I mentioned, you can read all about Jackie Robinson. And I don't think the American public would go, let's go to the Department of Defense and search Jackie Robinson. That's just kind of like extra. If you want to go the extra mile, sure. So, and what are we arguing about anyway? It's back on there and it's just a different portion of a URL. So the fuss that Jeff Passan is talking about, it was just so like piss or sit down when you piss sort of mentality. And, I've seen his tweets in the past. He's I always want to be curious and not judgmental, but from what I've seen, he's a very soft individual. And, it's ESPN, right? ESPN analysts, they're all kind of the same. Whenever these issues arise, almost all of them kind of align with a certain narrative. And that's kind of why I believe they stay at places like ESPN. So, and a lot of those guys have been ousted. People that contradict with those opinions, they've been outed out. They've been talk about rollbacks. ESPN does plenty of rollbacks that have gotten rid of pretty good analysts, and they go elsewhere because they didn't align with what Disney and ESPN believed ultimately. And if you didn't bend the knee, then you're gone. You're out of there. So it has been interesting. Let's go more into, I do want to highlight his service, Jackie Robinson's. Let's go through his Jackie Robinson's military career and history so that everyone's aware, right? Jackie Robinson served as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army during World War II from 1942 to 1944, assigned to a segregated cavalry unit at Fort Riley, Kansas, and later the 761st Tank Battalion at Camp Hood, Texas, now Fort. Drafted in April 1942, he applied for and completed Officers Candidate School, OCS, in 1943 with help from boxing champion Joe Louis, overcoming racial barriers to become one of the few black officers trained at the time. In 1944, Robinson faced a court-martial for refusing to move to the back of a military bus, challenging segregation, an act that predated Rosa Parks' bus protest by over a decade. Acquitted of all charges, he was honorably discharged in November 1944 due to a recurring ankle injury from his college football days, which made him unfit for combat. His military service, marked by resilience against discrimination, laid groundwork for his later civil rights activism and historic breaking of baseball's color barrier in 1947 with the Brooklyn Dodgers. The Brooklyn Dodgers! And, we hit that home run. Meh. That, if y'all have probably seen that Shane Gillis bit about Jackie Robinson is pretty freaking funny. But, like I mentioned, where to find Jackie Robinson's military history? National Archives and Records Administration, the Library of Congress, military.com, history.com, Britannica.com, wikipedia.org, baseballhall.org, which is the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, National Museum of African American History and Culture, U.S. Army Museum System, ProQuest.com, archive.org. You can look them up everywhere in there. And honestly, the public, the Joe Schmoes, people like me that would want to find this out for myself, we would go there to look. So I don't think I've in my life have ever opened the Department of Defense.gov website. So not really a primary concern, for the American public. So the outrage here was pretty interesting. All right, so the public misconception versus reality. Here's kind of like the shadow the script part of the story. The Pentagon's actions on military history and whatnot. Here's a public misconception. with erasing Jackie Robinson and minority heroes, like we mentioned earlier, many believe the Pentagon is stripping away Jackie Robinson and other minority figures. I mentioned others like, Charles Calvin Rogers, Ira Hayes, code talkers, military histories and whatnot. And, the X posts that I've seen with like Jeff Passan and, some senators commented on it, and the outrage over removed Pentagon website stories, it's seen as an attack on Black, Native American, and minority legacies, erasing, American heroism and diversity. And the reality is with the DEI rollback and, not the history or erasing of history, is the Pentagon's actions follow Trump administration's DEI rollback. The executive orders that Pete Hegseth is carrying out fluently within the warfighting mission, and it targets DEI-specific content, training, education, and recruitment pages featuring minority stories like Robinson's, as I mentioned before. The removal isn't about invalidating histories, but eliminating DEI framework from federal sites. And histories remain widely available in museums, libraries, archives, books, and third-party sites. It's not erased, it's just relocated. And the controversy is about policy shift, not a wipeout of historical facts. So I think that kind of sums up the Jackie Robinson stuff. I mean, I really I thought it was interesting because it was trending. And I feel like that was smart to kind of go in there and say, let's shadow the script on this. I mean, let's go in there and let's look at the historical context, the factual information and whatnot, and let's kind of get after it here. So, all right, let's move on to our next segment. So we get to talk a little bit about the Masters. And let me find the good old Masters preview that I saw. It's pretty entertaining. As someone that's gotten into golf, like this stuff is pretty special. There we go. All right, let's take a look here.
I've seen it all. I've seen grown men cry on a cloudless Sunday afternoon, and late bloomers in early spring. I've seen armies form for kings, tigers hunting, bears charging, all while I've stood my ground. I've seen life after sudden death, when getting lost in the woods reveals a path to victory. I've seen patrons lose their breath, then lose their minds. New chapters added to storied legacies, and history rewritten with a single stroke. After all these years, after all this magic, I've seen it all. That is until every April rolls around, and then I realize maybe I haven't.
All right, there you go. That's pretty neat. That gives you goosebumps. That gives you chills. I mean, we've seen a lot of Masters tournaments, especially in recent years. I think the most amazing one that I can recall in recent memory was Tiger Woods a couple years ago. I mean, I watched that one from beginning to end, just, hoping that Tiger would pull it off. I mean, he, by far, I mean, this is no extraordinary claim, but by all means, Tiger Woods is by far the best and most exciting golfer, I've ever watched. He made it exciting. And I think what made him unique, and I know he's battling through injuries and just constant surgeries and whatnot. And, what made him unique was that, and I'll use an example, the Players Tournament. There was a young man that was tied he made the cut at like 65th place and got a tee time with the players like Jordan Spieth. and whatnot. And the interview was orchestrated in a way where it was like, you know, how do you feel about being placed 65th and actually getting to compete with golfers like Jordan Spieth and whatnot? But the format of the question was more like, hey, you know, you're a nobody and golf is like this all the time. How does an amateur feel now that you belong to something? And so, like, you know, that sounds great the way I put it, but the way I heard it was like, are you telling me that I suck at golf and I shouldn't be here? And like, are you like the narrative was like, I'm kind of making fun of you, like 65th place. Hey, that's pretty damn good, isn't it? How does that feel? You chump change? Like, it's like, okay, like, let's calm down. So his reaction was like so plain and, you know, unemotional. But there was a similar interview to a young man like Tiger Woods when he was coming up through the ranks. And the golf interviewer was doing the same thing. And Tiger Woods was like, he was getting asked questions like, you know, how does it feel to be on the bottom of the food chain, you know, working your way up with the big dogs? And Tiger Woods says, well, I'm playing to win. I plan to win the tournament. And he's like, all right, young fella, you know, you'll learn. And he's like, we'll see. You know, and he goes on to win everything that he's won. But that competitive drive and that I don't really want to be second place, you know, that wasn't common during that time. And so when Tiger Woods was like at a super young age, I want to win. I want to be first place. I don't want 65th place. I want to be the best. And he did it. But the golf interviewer was so like disdained that he had this mentality that it changed the golf world. And so I think that's instrumental with Tiger Woods. And it's one of my favorite stories of golf because, you know, most people that go play golf, you know, they're pretty competitive. It's a weird space to where you're out there. And even if you're not that good, you know, I've only been playing for like a year or so, or a little less than a year. And, you know, I'm not that good. I would say, you know, if we're being honest here, I shoot in the mid 90s. You know, I would say it's fun to play. But I'm still competitive, very competitive. And it's like you still get frustrated. But there's something about golf where that frustration and going out there and struggling, but that you're being on that nice cut grass, you know, in the springtime or in the fall time, like that breeze is blowing. You're drinking a couple cold runs with the boys. You're with your boys. You're with your brothers and whatnot, and you're playing, and, you know, it's just, you're out there for a good amount of time. It takes up most of the day. And you're like, damn, like that was, I know I struggled and I know I got competitive, but it was like, it was mind clearing. Like it was like a reset mentally, even though, because the only thing I was thinking about was lifting that golf ball off the ground, was putting it into the hole or chipping it onto the green or teeing it up in the right place, or what am I going to order when the cart girl comes around? Am I going to flirt with her or am I not going to flirt with her? Is she a baddie or is she not a baddie? Am I even going to see a cart girl? And so all these things matter when you're going to play golf. And so with that comes the food. You know, do you grab a hot dog? You get, you know, a nice old glizzy with, you know, a little bit of mustard. Grab a blue Powerade, regenerate at the clubhouse in the back nine, you know, that sort of thing. And so let's go into the Taste of Texas from Scottie Scheffler, the 2024 Masters Tournament winner. Okay, the Taste of Texas. I'm going to have to find this. I don't know. I swear there we go. Yeah, so the Taste of Texas here from Scottie Scheffler. Interesting choice. Of course, being a Texan, I'd really like to see this as the app is buffering. Okay, let's take a look. All right, the Masters Club Dinner, April 8th, 2025. Appetizers, we've got the cheeseburger sliders served Scottie style, and the firecracker shrimp, sweet Thai chili and sriracha mayo. Okay, so a little bit of appetizers here. We're going for the chilies look a little bit on the cheeseburger sliders. What is Scottie style? Is that like, I don't even know. What is Scottie like on his cheeseburger sliders? You know, if I had to guess, he's probably okay, I see some jalapenos down here at the bottom. If I had to guess, Scottie Scheffler's probably a spice kind of guy. So I bet Scottie style is probably like Chipotle mayo, jalapeno sourdough like bread on the sliders, little bit of American cheese, and kind of slap that son of a gun together and get after it. The firecracker shrimp, that's some stuff, you know, I would tear it up, especially if someplace like Papado's had it. Whew. We're at 545 and, you know, in spring and whatnot in the Woodlands. Shit, that would be firecracker shrimp. Okay, Papa Chef's meatball and ravioli bites. Pecorino cheese, tomato, basil sauce. Papa Chef, can we have a meatball and ravioli bites? No, son, it takes hours to make. Pecorino cheese. What the hell is pecorino cheese? Let's look this up. Pecorino cheese is a family of hard Italian cheeses made from sheep's milk. The name pecorino comes from pecora, the Italian word for sheep. There are several, what is this, biblical? Well, there are several varieties of pecorino, with the most famous being pecorino romano, pecorino toscano, pecorino sardo, and pecorino siciliano. My God, Ano, Bono. Each type varies in flavor, texture, and aging time depending on its region of origin and production methods. Pecorino Romano, probably the best known variety. It's sharp, salty, and aged for at least 5 to 8 months. It's often grated over pasta dishes like cacio e pepe in the carbonara. Historically tied to the Rome area, most of it's now produced Sardinia. So you're asking me to eat from a bunch of Romans, the people that crucified Jesus. You're asking me to eat from them at the golf tournament? No, thank you. I think I'm going to pass on that appetizer and go for the cheeseburger bites. Pecorino Toscano from Tuscany. This one's milder and a little less salty, with a creamier texture when fresh or semi-aged. It can be eaten on its own or paired with honey. So this would be like a damn good thing to dip like as an appetizer with like crackers and stuff, I would assume. Pecorino Sardo from Sardinia. It comes in 2 main styles. Dulce, sweet, aged briefly, and Maturo, mature, aged longer. I never thought Maturo would mean mature. Aged longer for a sharper taste. What it sounds like here is that if I were to have a girlfriend and they wanted to make a charcuterie board, we'd be going to the finest markets of Italy just to find these types of cheeses to put on there for a party of 6 at an apartment. And it's just like, what are we doing this? We'll just go grab some cheese from the side of HEB and make a charcuterie board, and then we'll call it Pecorino Romano and just go from there, right? Pecorino Siciliano from Sicily, often peppercorn studded like Pecorino Papato, adding a spicy kick. Okay, if I had to bet, that's probably the one that they're officially using. So, okay, it's rich in protein and fat with a distinctive tangy bite that gets stronger with age. Okay, that's enough about pecorino cheese. Here we go. First course. This reminds me of the Cody Johnson song, but it's a Texas-style chili. Cheddar cheese, jalapenos, and corn chips. No beans. There ain't no beans in that shit. Texas-style chili. Now, at the deer lease, I don't know if for you hunters out there, if you're your Papa Chef, if you will, makes some chili at the deer lease, dude, we had some truffle oil, like hot sauce, put in that son of a gun with some homemade brisket, put it in that chili and whatnot, a little bit of shredded cheese, a little bit of Cholula. Shoot, son, it'll put you to bed quick. And, if you hunt down there in South Texas, you'll be shitting next to the rattlesnakes. But hey, it was worth it. Let's bring a flashlight and a handgun out there, and you're pretty set. Just make sure you got the night sights on. But and you need to pop 3 rounds out there. They think that that's just part of the process out there. But you probably just are crapping in a rattlesnake's den. Damn indigo snake will roll up on you and eat it right in front of you. But I've had enough about that. But the Texas style chili is I would rate that probably a 7.5 out of 10 for for a first course meal. Now, so that's kind of like here's your appetizer, and then here's your first course, and then now you get a main course. It's like, my God, how much that bowl of chili better be, bite size. Choice of wood-fired cowboy ribeye or blackened redfish. Okay. Served with family-style macaroni and cheese. Now, is this pecorino or, what's going on here? Is that just like regular Kraft mac and cheese? Family-style macaroni and cheese, jalapeno cream corn. God. Jalapeno cream corn? Son. You go off 290 down to old Rudy's to get you some jalapeno cream corn on the side of them ribs. Getting hungry. All right, soy glazed Brussels sprouts. It reminds me of my roommate from college. He used to make Brussels sprouts all the time, just randomly at like 1 a.m. I'd be like asleep, and all of a sudden the oven turns on. He's being loud as hell, slamming every cabinet. And he's already eaten 7 times that day, if you catch my drift. And you can just smell the Brussels sprouts. And you're like, my God, did we just get hit with fucking Nova gas? What is that? I mean, what is this, Black Ops 1? What? Am I being chambered? And it was just Brussels sprouts at 1 a.m. in the morning and melted. Oh my God, dude, he would melt like a pint of ice cream. Like, let's cookies and cream. No, probably we'll go with vanilla. Vanilla Blue Bell ice cream, pint of it. Heat it up in the microwave and melt that son of a gun. Now it turns into a milkshake. Put it back in the refrigerator like for 30 or 45 minutes and drink that. Oh my God. Pair that with a little bit of Brussels sprouts, dude, you get a 5-course meal. Dessert. Oh, I didn't finish. Chipotle lime roasted sweet potatoes. Okay. Papa Chef's cooking. Papa Chef is cooking. All right, dessert. Warm chocolate chip skillet cookie. I don't even know what kind of vocal reaction I can have. Dude, chocolate chip cookies in general, paired with a little bit of milk. Like, I'm the type of guy, like, if you're going to order some crumble or whatever, dude, I just want the chocolate chip. Don't give me that Captain Crunch cum. Like, I want the chocolate chip, sweet chocolate chip with a little bit of salt on it. I'd rather eat that than anything. So, but you put that thing on a skillet with some vanilla bean ice cream. Bring me to BJ's right now. I'm calling an Uber. I can't even drive home. I eat too much of that stuff. I'm drunk headed home. But warm chocolate chip skillet cookie, that is a bomb dessert. God dang, Papa Chef is cooking right now. Mr. Scheffler, when you get out of prison, can you make us the warm chocolate chip skillet cookie? My cookie. Warm chocolate chip cookie? Oh my God. Served in honor of Mr. Scottie Scheffler. I swear if he plays like shit, it's because of this menu. Dude, I would rate this. Okay, yeah, I had a bad rating at first. I thought the Texas style chili was like the main course. Dude, this is a 10 out of 10. If you had to rate something 10 out of 10, I know Dave Portnoy would probably disagree with me. This is a 10 out of 10. Well done, Scottie Scheffler. Well done. Okay. Moving on from the Masters, let's go into the NFL rule changes. Now, this is interesting. This is where it's going to get technical. So, the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers are two teams that are introducing rule changes, are proposing rule changes for the upcoming season, or probably in 3 or 4 years, the way that the NFL works like the government. So, you never know when a rule change is going to be processed and whatnot. But, all right, let's look at the Packers first. Now, the Packers were the first to comment about the tush push. At first, it was anonymous. No one knew who the team was. It's probably some NFC East team that was complaining about it. Probably the Giants GM. So, officially, the Packers proposed to ban the tush push that the Eagles run with Jalen Hurts. Like this QB sneak merchant that gets like 10 plus rushing touchdowns a year. And he's like, he's got 37 touchdowns this year. I'm like, dog, he sniped like 10 rushing touchdowns from Saquon. Like, what are we talking about? All right, club rule change proposal, Rule 12, Section 1, to prohibit an offensive player from pushing a teammate who was lined up directly behind the snapper and receives the snap immediately at the snap. It's pretty broad. That's a pretty broad statement. We'll look at the official reasoning here. It's just a short statement. It's probably paraphrased. There's probably an official article behind it. The Packers' reasoning for trying to ban the tush push, which the Eagles have excelled at, is because of, quote, player safety and, quote, pace of play, according to the NFL. I'm going to throw this in AI and see what it does. Maybe it'll give me a better description. All right, the tush push is a controversial NFL play. Yep, know that. Green Bay Packers proposed banning the play, citing player safety and pace of play concerns as reported by the NFL, despite no significant injury data linked to it. Okay, so then AI's got a little opinion of itself. Is Grok a Jalen Hurts truther? This proposal follows previous discussions in the NFL about regulating the play, with the Eagles' success prompting other teams to consider similar tactics, increasing its league-wide impact. So here's the thing about the tush push. Like, I've never been able to really grasp an official opinion on the tush push, truth be told. Because to me, it looks like a QB sneak. Which is, I mean, it is what it is. But you know, I look at like Josh Allen doing a QB sneak. You know, Tom Brady was really good at QB sneaks back in his later days, and he might have been good at it all of his career. I can't necessarily remember off the top of my head. But when you looked at these sorts of things, it was interesting because they didn't line up in, like, for the most part, to my knowledge, they didn't line up in like a, you know, when they kneel the football, you have two guys on each side of the quarterback behind, like kind of centered or offset left and right based upon the back of the quarterback's feet, and then somebody back behind as well. Well, I think like what the Eagles do differently is they do that on the QB sneak and they aid the rusher. And I mean, truth be told, and as much as I hate watching the tush push, wouldn't this be the same thing as like pushing the pile 5 yards down the field? Because if you're going to ban the tush push, I mean, like, this is against my gosh. But if you're going to ban the tush push, then wouldn't you also have to ban that? Wouldn't you also have to ban aiding the runner down the field, like when the O lineman pushed the pile right near the goal line or near the first down marker, or just like a receiver pushing them into the end zone? You know, an open space and whatnot, or keeping up a runner. I've seen that before where like offensive linemen or wide receivers and whatnot, they lift up the runner if they're falling down, if they have the ability to do so. Wouldn't that be the same thing as aiding a runner? Because instantly when Jalen Hurts gets the snap, the play is designed for him to be a runner. So you're aiding the runner. Now, the part I struggle with is that, you know, the offensive line does this pinch technique. And there's a word, I think it's called a wedge technique, if I'm not mistaken. They do this wedge technique where the O-line essentially pinches inside, and their splits are super, super tight, almost like overlapping, because they don't want to allow any gaps or creases on the QB sneak. And they kind of form this like V-shaped offensive line, and it almost looks like an arrowhead. Before the play is snapped, and then boom, they're all pinched inside and centralized to the middle, and everyone is trying their asses off to stop it, and no one can. Now, there's certain characteristics in this play that I think matter, which is why it's so much different than other teams who don't do it near as well. And I don't know why other teams haven't implemented this. Because if everyone did it, maybe there would be a bigger push to say, no, on this specific play, you can't do that. I don't know. But like the fact that only the Eagles can do it is interesting to me. But I think the characteristics of which the play is effective is because Jalen Hurts squats like 700 pounds. Like the dude is you want to call, you know, Saquon Quadzilla. I mean, shit, that's another characteristic that might add to it if you get Saquon pushing from behind. But I mean, you got two quadzillas pushing, and obviously they've only had 1 year of Saquon doing it. But back in the day when Jason Kelsey was the center for the Philadelphia Eagles, like, dude, it was unstoppable. And then you watched it against the Commanders in the NFC Championship game, and you thought the same thing. This is impossible to stop. And, you know, why aren't other teams? Because, like, I watched Josh Allen do it. The only time I ever saw him really get stopped was against the Chiefs, of course, in the AFC Championship game this year. Every other time I watched Josh Allen do a quarterback sneak, they got it. So I find that interesting to think that, you know, we're going to ban aiding the runner, but at the same time, no one else is doing it, especially to the effect that the Eagles are and how effective they've been with it. So how this ban won't pass. There's no way in hell this ban is going to pass. But I'm curious to see also if other teams join in on this. And if they do, I would suggest that this is a win for the Eagles. Not because like the rule wasn't changed, but because like, you mad, bro, kind of like that's the kind of angle I think of when I hear about this. It's like, oh, you mad, you can't stop it. Like, don't hate the player, hate the game, baby. Like, you know, in this case, don't hate the play, but hate the game. It's like, well, the game allows this. It's a, you know, it's kind of like when Vrabel went against Bill Belichick and started doing, I think either delay of games or false start on special teams, like chewing the clock, and Belichick's over there smirking like, well played, you know, like a chess move. We're playing chess while you're playing checkers. So that'll be something to watch over time. But I mean, truth be told, if you want my opinion on it, I don't think this is going to get passed whatsoever. Now, the ones that might have a chance are the rule changes that the Detroit Lions proposed. So, looking at I'll bring up the Detroit Lions information here. I want to start from the top. Yeah, so here we go. The Lions have proposed a rule change to remove the automatic first down for defensive holding and illegal contact penalties. And then on top of that, a bigger one, the Lions have proposed a postseason format to allow wildcard teams to be seated higher than division champions if the wildcard team has a better regular season record. So we'll go piece by piece here. We'll start with the first one with the automatic first down for defensive holding and illegal contact penalties. And so I'll go into, this is from Tom Pelissero. This is kind of like the official rules, right? Amend Rule 8, Section 4, legal and illegal contact with eligible receivers. Page 32, new language underlined, deleted language struck through. Section 4, legal and illegal contact with eligible receivers. Article 1, legal contact within 5 yards. Within the area 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, a defensive player may chuck an eligible receiver in front of him. A defender is allowed to maintain continuous and unbroken contact within the 5 yard zone so long as the receiver has not moved beyond a point that is even with the defender. So this is like your pick play. Have you ever heard of a pick play? It's usually like a flat and a slant, something that's out and in, and they kind of intentionally cross paths, especially when you're in man coverage. And a lot of times they identify this pre-play. You find inside leverage with the cornerback, and the receiver on the outside really wants to get in. And so you almost like fake pick. You do like an NBA pick on the defender covering the cornerback on the outside, forcing the two cornerbacks, the slot and the outside corner, to switch places, which is very difficult to do. You can either choose to undercut it or overcut it, or you can switch effectively. Both are extremely hard to accomplish defensively. However, a lot of times if this is too obvious, it's called a penalty, and you replay the down or move back 5 or 10 yards, whatever it is. Now, this is a really good play. It really benefits the offense on this play. I'm not going to cap. And you can reverse this too and try and pick the out route instead of the in route, because a lot of times people, I would guess that corners and defensive coordinators really focus on that in route. But occasionally an offense coordinator that is, really good and like plays chess, not checkers against a defensive coordinator that might not be expecting it, they flip it and say, well, we're going to do the out. And so both defenders go with the in, the out's left wide open, or it's overcut and you're trying to get 2 or 3 yards. You can throw on the outside shoulder of the numbers, and for the score, stretch for the touchdown, you're in. So illegal contact within 5 yards is the other one. Within 5-yard zone, if the player who receives the snap remains in the pocket area with the ball, a defender may not make initial contact in the back of a receiver, nor may he maintain contact after the receiver has moved beyond a point that is even with the defender. If defender contacts the receiver within the 5-yard zone, loses contact, and then contacts him again within the 5-yard zone, it is a foul for illegal contact. Let me read that again. Sorry. If the player who receives the snap remains in the pocket area with the ball, a defender may not make initial contact in the back of a receiver, nor may he maintain contact after the receiver has moved beyond a point that is even with the defender. So, this is just illegal contact within 5 yards is basic. I mean, I understand that was the premise. I was just trying to get to the technicalities of it. This is like the initial start of the play. They're wanting to change that rule with the proposal, which, again, benefits the offense. Illegal contact beyond 5-yard zone. This is pretty much the same thing. Beyond the 5-yard zone, if the player who receives the snap remains in the pocket area with the ball, defender cannot initiate contact with a receiver who is attempting to evade him. So this is all pro-offense, anti-defense rule change proposals. Incidental contact beyond 5-yard zone. Article 5, illegal cutback block. So this is more... They're really only going after specific rules here. Penalty for holding by the defense, loss of 5 yards, and automatic first down, which has a strike through it. End of restrictions. If the quarterback or the receiver of the snap demonstrates no further intention to pass the ball, i.e. hands off or pitches the ball to another player, throws a forward or backward pass, loses possession of the ball by a muff that touches the ground or a fumble, or if he is tackled. The restrictions on the defensive team prohibiting illegal contact or an illegal cut block against an eligible receiver will end, and a defensive player is permitted to use his hands, arms, or body to push, pull, or ward off an offensive receiver, pursuant to Rule 12, Section 1, Article 5. If the quarterback leaves the pocket area with the ball in his possessions, the restrictions on illegal contact and illegal cut block both end, but the restriction on defensive holding remains in effect. Damn, that is complicated. Submitted by Detroit, eliminates an automatic first down so here's the end all be all. If the cause of effect here, if this rule change proposal was approved by the NFL, the effect of it is it eliminates an automatic first down as a penalty imposed for defensive holding and illegal contact. And the reason, it's competitive equity, competitive fairness, if you will. Current penalty enforcement is too punitive for the defense. So they're trying. So I'm wrong. Okay, I'm wrong. They're trying to protect the defense here. And there's factual information to back this up. So those are the rule changes they're trying to implement. But the reason for doing so, according to Warren Sharp on X, so he's saying, so the Lions want to get rid of auto first downs for defensive holding and illegal contact penalties. I wonder why that is. It's because the Lions commit by far the most of these penalties in the NFL. Number one most. This rule change would disproportionately help them as compared to other teams, especially as compared to the NFC North. Number of penalties called last 2 years, 26 on Detroit. That's number one. The second in the same division, the NFC North, is 16 with Green Bay. They're ranked 15th in that penalty zone. 9 called on Chicago, they're 30th, and 6 called on Minnesota, they're 32nd. So 10 more penalties on the Detroit Lions have been called versus their second place counterpart in the NFC North. Their high rates of man coverage lead to more of these being called. So, I'm going to forget his name. Anthony Glenn, I believe, was the defensive coordinator for the Lions, ran a lot of man coverage last year. And so this creates a lot of hand contact, physical, let them play type mentality where my man against your man, who's going to beat, and we trust our guys. But the Lions have been called for the most of these penalties in the NFL, especially in their own division. So this is really an effort to protect their own penalization. Defensive holding and illegal contact penalties since 2023, Detroit is first at 26. The New York Jets and Tennessee are tied at 23 in second place. Atlanta in fourth. Dallas, Miami, and Baltimore are, this would be second, third, fourth, tied for fifth. That's interesting. So yeah, there's an angle here. There's an angle here that the Lions are trying to attack. And I understand that, there's speculation that the Lions are using bounties. The Lions have kind of produced this sort of ego over the past 2 years, and rightfully so. They're a damn good football team. They really got banged up at the wrong time last year. But when you look at it from, a fairness and equity perspective, I don't think they're really arguing the right sort of thing here. I believe that this is a ploy to kind of protect their own players. I agree with Sharp's opinions. Because, you look across the league, the Jets, they probably ran a lot of man coverage with DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner and whatnot. Tennessee, I believe, had, what's his name, McDuffie? They had a good corner. Atlanta, they have a top-tier corner. Honestly, the teams that have top-tier corners are the ones that are in the top five. Dallas, you can argue with a wall. I'm sure you guys are like, ugh, Trayvon sucks, which he will, unfortunately. But, Darren Bland didn't even really play. So I'm not sure why since 2023. I guess that makes sense, but that's 2 years. I think Detroit is trying to protect their own players here. And, why wouldn't you? But when you see these sorts of rule changes and whatnot, you wonder, is it in protection of all the teams in the NFL, or is it just in the security and the protection of your own? And in this case, based on the factual evidence, I would say it's in protection of their own. And now more teams might get along with it to protect their defensive corners and secondary players. But I, for one, believe that the defense is burdened far more than the offense in the NFL, without question. I think the defense has to abide by much more NFL rules than the offense does. You can't hit a quarterback below the waist. You can't put a hand on the quarterback's face when you're rushing him. You can't slam a quarterback down when you're rushing him. You can't cut block in certain areas. Or no, not that, but with the defensive illegal contact penalties, with pass interference it favors, with underthrown balls, a lot of times or I would say most of the time, 90% of the time, I would say, it benefits the offense. The NFL rewards poorly thrown footballs. And the whole notion of not catchable doesn't really apply anymore. I rarely see it. Even if it's not catchable, people are still running their mouths like pass interference, yelling yelling at the bar top and whatnot. So, go ahead, sure. But, I'll probably do the same thing. But when I watch the replay and stuff, I'm a pretty realistic fan. And I'll call it how it is. Even to my own fan base, they're like, dude, you want them to win. I'm like, dude, no, I know the rules of football, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to sound above all else, but that's just a fact of the matter. I've encountered that plenty of times. So, okay, yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. That's an interesting take by the Detroit Lions. We'll see how those rule change proposals play out over time. I'm sure neither will get changed because I don't think they'll have enough support from NFL owners and teams across the league to make a difference there. So, all right. Last but not least, I talked about this one at the beginning of the podcast, and it's going to be pretty short and sweet. I just thought it was hilarious. So a video released of Paul Skenes, the stud pitcher, the one who's dating Livy Dunn for the Pittsburgh Pirates, a video inside the clubhouse that was announcing Paul Skenes as the opening day starter for the Pirates. And, X did the funny thing here and just kind of like said what everyone else was thinking. It was like, this is like JJ Redick sitting down with LeBron before the season starts and said, "Hey, LeBron, I got news for you, pal. You're going to be on the starting five." And it's of course, like, well, why wouldn't I be? I'm the best player on this team or whatever. And so it's like, Aaron Judge, you're starting in right field. You're like, of course I am. Why wouldn't I be? And so, with Paul Skenes and whatnot, I mean, like, of course, who can you name another pitcher on the Pirates? Like, off the top of your head, and I'm an MLB fan. Like, dude, like, of course he is. But the fact that the reason they videoed it was because Paul Skenes was technically a rookie last year and he played mid-season. So going into this is his first time in his career, because he's a young gun, to be named the opening day starter. So it's an honor for someone like Paul Skenes, as it's the first time he's getting the nod. And we should all congratulate Paul Skenes, but it's like, hell, man. I mean, of course he is. Why wouldn't he? So, all right. So a couple announcements. I mean, that pretty much wraps up the show. I appreciate you guys joining in. Listen, season 3 is going to be pretty fun. We're going to be doing guest interviews towards, like, I guess the end, like, to better calculate, like towards like the end of the semester ish for, people that are in college and high school and whatnot, kind of better gauge, like that May area, June, July, August, September. During that time, we're going to be implementing some guest interviews. Now we'll see what we can do with how big of these guests are going to be, but some of them are going to be friends of mine, and really want to give them back a piece of the pie, because they've supported me since the beginning. And I felt like it was the right thing to do to talk to them in a sense where we're going to video it, sit down and have a discussion and just kind of talk shop. So be aware for that. That's going to be rolling out in early May, throughout the summer and into the fall. And if we continue to do it in the fall, that'll be a different strategy there. So we'll see how that goes. But just be aware that's going to be coming in season 3. We launched our official website, www.shatterthescript.com. It looks great. You can find our episodes there. You can subscribe to a newsletter. We'll be publishing, some articles here and there. On my X account, Shatter the Script, STS_pod, I wrote my first article, and the title of it is called "Pay Your Players Early." Now, this is in response to the Cincinnati Bengals paying Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and organizations like the Dallas Cowboys waiting too long to pay their star players, and the repercussions of that. And so I kind of winged it. I did try and keyword try to like reformat it through other means and be like, let's like organize this professionally. And I was like, no, I kind of want it to be authentic. So everything in there, I guess, quote unquote, is unedited, but you can find the posts that I reference for factual information. It's got a neat little Bible verse there at the end. It's got our links to our latest episode. It's got a link to our website. It's got everything in there. And it's a really short read. It's probably about a 5-minute read. But it's my first article, so I'm proud of it, and I was happy to roll it out. There will be more. It's not going to be like a very, very consistent thing, but over time, maybe once a month, I want to publish a good meaning article. So yeah, I'm proud of it. But yeah, website, guest interviews, articles, and more in season 3, and you can catch that all of that stuff on our social media. Podcasts are released on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Spotify and YouTube both support video and audio. Well, I guess YouTube doesn't, and then TikTok, Instagram, and X are all under the same name. If you just search Shatter the Script, and you'll find us on there with the new logo and whatnot. So I appreciate you guys' support. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Shattering the Script. If you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe, and share with your friends. And we'll catch y'all weekly on the Shatter the Script Network. All right. You guys have a fantastic rest of your week. Enjoy the weekend. Happy early Easter. And I'm out. All right. Let's play a nice little outro music here.